Hey, it is Jerry. It is a weekend of July 29th. I'm following up. I did a lot of posts on the UFO congressional hearings this week. Um, it was pretty significant. It was a big moment, and I think the moment lived up to the expectation. That's a good thing. We entered new territory, as some other observers had mentioned. We crossed the Rubicon from this disclosure perspective, from the perspective of those generally that are checking out NaradigmShift or Prepare for Change, or that are in for this awakened community. We are a definite subset of society, but we're awakened. We understand the shift and everything that's going on. Call it the shift, call it the end of this age, call it the reset, call it the great awakening. We're at a different point of disclosure. And disclosure is certainly what happened with the hearings this week. So when we think critically about, from our perspective, the weaponization of the UFO card, what that means in establishing the New World Order, the UFO phenomenon has three parts. The first part is government cover up, this world government that works together. They understand the history and have had contact with extraterrestrials. Even as testimony from the hearing came out, 1930s, elites actually claim to be from either the stories are the fallen angels, the bloodline of Cain, which happens because of Lucifer's temptation impregnating Eve. So their claims go way, way, way back, way deep. And what we do hope eventually we get to a place that we understand our place in cosmic society. If you get into the occult, you'll come across the stories of planets in our solar system, all the planets having intelligent life on them, or intelligent life being all over the place at different dimensions, at different densities, and in different sort of locations. It all becomes really, really fascinating. We have a lot of anecdotal stories that are out there. So all of those stories are just years of inertia leading to this moment where the moment's important because the great majority of the mass of people still believe in government and have to have an official version come out that meets them where they're at. So that's where the government cover up comes in. Government, of course, for their part, don't want to relinquish any concept of power or the idea that there are rulers or controllers that work above government's level, and there certainly are. That's no secret. When you start waking up and asking those questions, it becomes really, really obvious. Um, the other second part of three that's important in the UFO phenomenon, as far as cover ups go, is the black budget, how much money is spent and put towards this. The Pentagon cannot pass accounting investigations or oversight. There's a word I'm looking for exactly, but it'll come to me. But they fail those audits time after time after time. And we have a consistent record of failing those audits and putting money out into government programs. It gets laundered, it gets funneled into places, and they can't explain where it went to. So tons of that money, billions, if not trillions, seem to be going into black budgets, which is interesting in the hearings. They actually talk about that, and they want transparency. The congressional representatives, they are representatives, not senators, at this hearing, or on the record asking, where budgets go to, where do we look for this stuff? Who do we ask? Who do we get in contact with? Who do we bring forward to tell us where these budgets are going? That came across as a bipartisan sentiment, which was really, really interesting. And then there's just this whole third part of the phenomenon is public disclosure part. So in the public disclosure, that's just huge because once we accept that we're not alone in the universe, that there are cosmic cousins, all the things that many people have been behind and advocating and speaking about and collecting data on for years, if not decades, then we reach a different level of consciousness in our society. And we can start having those conversations. And those conversations open up all kinds of doors in philosophy, religion, politics, finances, global control, secret societies, the occult, bloodline rule. So we're not going back. The genie's out of the bottle. From our perspective, this deeper perspective, a disclosure type of perspective, there's a lot of very significant things that came out of these hearings. And this presentation that I made earlier this morning, I'm going to replay that. I had some PowerPoint slides, but I go through the perspectives, what came out from each witness, what their perspective was, and then what came out from Congress and what it means for us. So enjoy this and check out NaradigmShift.substack.com. Thanks. I think we all raise your hands. You've got a purpose. You know what your mission is. You've been on this path. You have a calling. So you're here because you're in service to others. It's not a thing that you're in service to yourself. That's what I thought was really interesting about this hearing was, I'd never really even been a ufologist, but we just have always had the sense that there's something greater out there. In my own past, I've gotten plenty of messages and inspirations, sparks that let me know we're here for a purpose. My purpose is to traverse the 3D population to the 5D sort of concept. But enough about me. There's a lot of great people here that have been seeking for sure. We'll get everybody's opportunities to contribute in about 20 minutes. So let me blast through this presentation. And the idea of it was to summarize what we all heard. If you didn't hear it, you'll get the summation here. Raise your hand if you didn't hear a good chunk of the hearings. Yeah, fantastic. Certainly, it was historic. Some people are saying that we crossed the Rubicon, and that's not because of the information itself was things that we haven't heard about before, but for that 95-ish% of humanity that really are not there, that 95%, that mass of humanity, they wait to hear from their government. And the fact that this was a congressional hearing, that it was in the US, I was talking to somebody else this week, there's other countries around the world, India, Russia, Taiwan, Southeast Asia, Latin America. It's not such a crazy topic, but in the developed world, where all the control is, it is a big topic. So let me set up my thing. Kat, why don't you add a little maybe summation there while I get this ready?
Summation? I would. How do you mean, Hen? Seriously?
What can you add there?
That what I saw was a show. If you look at Gresh right in the middle there, behind him is, oh goodness, the guy that just started doing his presentations.
Corbell, Jeremy Corbell.
Thank you, Corbell, and was that Schumer? No, begins with a B. The other gentleman to his right.
You know who this guy here is? That's James Clapper.
Clapper, yeah. And it seems to me there's money to be had in this with the TV shows and such. And TTSA was involved in that. Luis Elizondo had his own TV show, Unexplained. And it seems like these groups really get involved in that, and there's a big showmanship involved. And while they talk about the nuts and bolts and control and be afraid it's a threat, they're missing the really important details, which is the consciousness aspect involved with this phenomenon. For those who have had contact, Giorgio knows of this, Bob knows of this. I've shared my stories with most of you here. It's life-changing, and yet it's not being discussed.
So this was the opportunity of kicking down the door. Thank you for that. And so 3 parts of this that I observed. What did the general population hear? What does it mean for disclosure, our world? And then how might this play out? There's implications for humanity. I'll start with the general population. The general population's mindset is kind of summed up in this image here. Gee, aliens might be near. There's been a lot of progress. Consciousness, as we know, is going to be spread throughout the tip of the spear, the small numbers, but it's going to really expand. There was reaction to this. I don't want to say that there wasn't. Not everybody just jumped onto the page that we're on all of a sudden, but we did cross the Rubicon. I've got this picture here because still the general population will, their perspective on this is just different. They are either, still controlled, are going to be manipulated. They trust government. So having this on the official record under oath, penalty of perjury, sponsored by Congress and officials, as Kat was saying, Schumer, Rubio, it's becoming official. So that perks up our ears and our spidey senses as to, why is it all of a sudden being sort of embraced? We have maybe a couple of scenarios as far as that goes. We will reach a critical mass, and this will change consciousness. That's a big part of this. Just expanding consciousness is going to be a great thing. This will trigger fears in some people, and it might stoke more fears to create the movie. We know what movie this is, and we don't want that to happen. I'm sorry if you're hearing birds. I actually have a noise cancellation thing on right now, but I live very close to an aviary. Put it that way. So what was presented from Grush, David Grush? Grush himself is an intel officer, and he's in an interesting position where he audits black budgets and tries to get testimony from people in the intel agencies, but he also got into sort of the budgeting, the black budgets where there's a lot of waste. So in his investigating of that, he looks into government programs as to, well, why do you have waste? Where's the money going to? And what are you doing to earn the money that you're getting? There might be a better summation of that. But from his testimony, we have non-human intelligence, which is craft, and their accompanying tech in possession by US government since the 1930s. So that's a big, huge admission. We've recovered non-human biologics, which could mean anything non-human, bears or squirrels, but it was implied to mean extraterrestrials. And he doesn't like to use the word extraterrestrials. He liked using the word non-humans. I really didn't ever understand what his delineation was. We can talk about that later if somebody can clue me in. But his black budgets are in the billions, if not trillions. And they are laundered to defense contractors. Defense contractors sometimes have authority over government. There's something that came out of this that came from the congressional side. A big thing that he let drop out on the record was the holographic principle. That was in answering how could they travel vast distances, and that was a line of questioning asked by this one Missouri Congressman, Representative Burleson. He, to me, was the only guy that, it was interesting because among everybody that was testifying, he was one of the guys that had, if you would call it, cognitive dissonance. I don't think he had gotten the memo yet. So it was pretty interesting that his line of questionings were a little bit more pointed, a little bit more cynical. The other presenter, Ryan Graves, he's a former Navy pilot, and he works with commercial and military pilots in reporting and collecting data of incidences. He was pretty good in as far as saying that there's not transparency. He admitted that 95% of reports don't get reported. So there's a stigma. His big push was to destigmatize this. The future ramifications, implications of that could be very positive. He'd witnesses a craft from about 50 feet away. He described his craft was a dark gray cube inside of a clear sphere, and also described, I don't know if it was the same craft, but described a craft that was as large as a football field. So again, remember, this is on congressional record in the public. So that's pretty significant. And then Fravor is known for 20 years of service in the Navy. He's a Navy commander. He was a commander of the TikTok group that recorded the TikTok incident. The TikTok incident is, in his words, the most credible UFO incident ever. And that's simply because of it was done in a naval exercise. 4 pilots saw that. It was on radar, as well as the ships that were out in the training exercises. His description was a craft going from 80,000 feet, which is space, to 20,000 feet in about that quickly. He also added that they could hit Mach 2 about that quickly. His controllers, the controller of the squadron, or his formation, told him that the craft had gone 60 miles in less than a minute. So that was pretty impressive. A lot of his conversation was about the physics and the fact that there needs to be transparency. So this was Fravor talking about the physics of the craft. Of course, this is his video testimony. So we're predicating all of this on this bit of video, most credible. And that came in 2004. Overall, these 3 witnesses agreed we could not defend ourselves. They weren't forthcoming in saying that. In fact, Fravor was saying, I was in that presence. His description of the event was that the foreign craft somehow took over controls of some of their systems. And even with them taking over control of his systems, he didn't feel threatened. They were jamming their radar is what he was talking about. But that one representative I mentioned, Burleson, he's the one that asked them, hey, well, is this a threat to national security? And that's the little chink, that's the opening. If that guy is an agent and being directed to steer the conversation one way, it's clear that that's the thing that our control system, they want to get out there. Craft are monitoring our nuclear capabilities. They all agreed that the craft and occupants seem to be concerned about our weapons programs. Grush actually had DOD clearance to speak about his experiences as an intel officer, but he couldn't speak about specifics. But he could publicly, he could speak about classified stuff in a skiff. So a lot of the Congress people were asking about certain things. Were they hurt? Did he have proof of the bodies, proof of the materials, proof of the craft? They asked him as well as if he knew anybody observing the crafts had ever been injured, and those type of questions that got to more truth. He said, I can speak about that and name names in a skiff. So what Congress agreed upon, Congress, agreed to have more hearings. They came out pretty vocal about themselves being censured, and they have been restricted from sites as well as chain of command. I guess you would say, meaning they aren't the top dog in government. And they even brought out that they've been restricted by defense contractors. So defense contractors might have some sort of technologies or something reported with them. They try to show up to those locations, and defense contractors keep them at bay. So it was interesting because it became, I'll use the word, a pissing contest. But the fact that, you know, they've been wanting to have these hearings for decades, that they did have them, and they all did ask pretty intelligent questions, I would say, in my opinion, as well as they could, just to open up the subject. But they themselves said that they're denied access to a lot of information, so they want more transparency in reporting, and overall they want to destigmatize people coming forward. I did want to mention this bit of this. I'll show you kind of the video here. This is the team that was really behind putting this together. I probably didn't link the audio, and there's not a lot of audio on this. This was live C-SPAN, but this was the incident. This was the incident of approving McCarthy for Speaker of the House, right? Where the Republican caucus wanted concessions from him. So this is Burkett. He's the guy that really led the idea of putting the hearing together. And then this fellow back here, I think his name is Ogles. He was part of the team that came out and presented. Right behind him is Luna. Representative Luna was real big in the conversation as well, the hearings. And then this is Gates. So, and Gates was actually a pretty vocal person in the hearing too. So it was pretty interesting. There's some speculation that approving McCarthy's speakership might have gone back to this moment of them negotiating. Hey, well, we'll approve it if you let us have certain hearings in the next session, the UFO hearing being one of them. So all of those guys, I'd keep an eye on them as a team. They're pretty interesting. And then where was I going on this one? The what does this mean? So that was kind of what was presented, the Congress side, the witnesses side, but kind of what's going to come out of this. So the possibilities of what this means, what it opens up for disclosure. We know that the tactic of information, knowledge is power, having information is pretty incredible. In the UFO phenomenon, it's got three parts. The government cover up is the major part, how much is spent in the black budgets, and the public disclosure part of it. For disclosure, what does it mean for disclosure? I outlined these couple things. There probably means a lot more, which I think we're going to get to in our conversation, but you're removing this barrier of the truth or to the truth. It's really significant to get this out there. We're not alone. Just that statement alone, I believe, should raise people's consciousness. From our perspective, ETs say they haven't wanted to appear in mass due to humanity not being ready. And this will wake up enough for the reveal, I feel. That reveal, that's where we've got to kind of assert ourselves in what the reveal is going to be. So there's several paths that the reveal can take. What does this mean for humanity? So if we haven't been alone since the 30s, these are just a few questions. And I think this is where our expertise is going to really, really be influential. If we carve out our niche, there's going to be people are turning away from mainstream media kind of in droves. So do we have an opportunity here? Some of my questions would be, how long have rulers known about this? If they've known about this, why are we treated like slaves? If there's beings above rulers, why haven't they shown up? How does all this craziness, how is it allowed on the planet? If they travel great distances, what, why is our travel limited? All of these things, all the technologies that can come out of it, the philosophies, the implications, the ramifications. And I'd like to get into conversations about that with y'all. But there's two potentials out here that I see that cabal would like to direct. But a change of circumstance happens as a result of a change of your state in consciousness. So now that they've opened this can of worms, the one path, I'm sure we're all concerned about it to a degree. On one path doesn't mean a hostile alien invasion. So the first path is Earth will be under attack from hostile aliens trying to provide a planetary takeover. And we must unite together to fight against this. This is the idea of the New World Order. Therefore, entire population must accept new restrictions and lockdowns in the name of the greater good. That's one potential. The second potential, interestingly, is the counter of that, benevolent alien revelations. So how much do we, resonate with this statement? Galactic Federation of Love and Light will impose a new set of fantastic regulations. All the population of Earth must follow to ensure a harmonious future. This option requires restrictions and lockdowns. So basically, it's the same thing. But meet the old boss, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. The point here is that if this is done and fast tracked to let this out, and we have some indications of that, Schumer and Rubio being the poster children that want to push this forward. Well, why are they all of a sudden pushing it forward? And we know in the greater scheme of things that there's a big battle going on. So the goals are kind of the same. New World Order always has a contingency plan, but there is a way to stop this. And the outcome may be somewhere in between. We play a huge role in creating our reality. So that's why knowledge is such an important part of this, sharing knowledge, keys of stopping it. The key to stopping madness potentials is to take responsibility for whatever you think is the truth. Stop giving credibility and depending on what government says as truth. That means more exposure. The government of Earth, because there's only one, and the rest are fractals of the same thing, has no interest in ever giving useful truth to the people. Keep that in mind. You are your savior, and we can create the outcome. So from our perspective, and I'm big on this, I'm bullish on our positive future, and those of us that have messages from higher intelligences, we all say the war is already won, so this won't turn out. But a cornered animal is really, really desperate when they are cornered, so they're going to throw everything out there. So I believe that they've miscalculated. This is likely a distraction, reinforces that they are losing control. Go on with your life and be the best version of you can be. Let's not manifest any of the negative path by staying proactive and knowledgeable. By being aware of it, it also lets you know what you don't want. So knowledge, again, is a huge key. If you know that this is being done to you, you can state your intentions and manifest something positive. Let me show this thing because this is a summation. It's from Family of Taygeta, but it's a sort of summary future look at where we can go. Really quick, but that's where we can go. We can do this. We can make a positive outcome there.